Greetings, my fellow freedom sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Swimping Mingles of South Florida, and today's date is Saturday, December 9th, 2017. It is a nice, cool evening, and if you hear the music in the background, it's mainly the Winterfest. It's going to begin. The boat parade they have here every year. Good turnout, nice crowd. Plus, I'm at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue, Suite 1 along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. So we're gonna do some show. Just some stuff I'm gonna be talking about as usual. Just nothing really amazing has happened. Just a few instances. You got people out there that think they're smarter than everybody else, and they are good at stumbling with 2 left feet, I would say, right? I don't want to get too much into detail. It's never been my priority on addressing these areas. But, yeah, a lot of stuff is going on. Another thing going on with Florida, with medical marijuana and patients' gun rights. It looks like the state is concerned about the feds may come in and arrest anyone, but may be harassed if they have a medical marijuana license. They can't carry a firearm because it violates federal law. Well, it's typical propaganda matrix 101. When the feds know best, tell them to shut the hell up. So what I'm going to be doing right now came from the Florida 10th Amendment Center as of yesterday, if I'm correct. And this one's entitled Medical Marijuana and Patients' Gun Rights, a Florida Dilemma. And as it reads here, in the television interview this week, Florida House Representatives member Court Bird explained medical marijuana users will be in violation of federal firearms law. Speaking to Channel 9 via FaceTime, Bird explained that possessing medical marijuana while having or buying a gun can carry the penalty up to 10 years in prison. Woo! Manly hooray to victimless crime laws, right? It won't say it will happen, but I will advise someone who calls me that it certainly is a possibility. He said, the prohibition is clearly explained on forms required when a person is purchasing a firearm. Bird said, I think it's 4473. I could be mistaken. That's that BS Big Brother registration form. You have a helicopter going over me right now, but I'm inside. Big Brother form that was enacted since the 1968 Gun Control Act was enforced. Another treasonous bill, I would say, right? Absolutely. Federal law prohibits any lawful user of a controlled substance to purchase a firearm. It doesn't matter if Florida has legalized medical marijuana, he said. Nowhere in the state ratification debates was the medical needs of the people weighed against their right to keep and bear arms. This apparent dilemma provides a teachable moment for voters and legislators. Madison wrote in the Virginia resolutions the clear duty of the legislature against federal usurpations. This assembly doth explicitly and peremptorily declared that it views the powers of the federal government as resulting from the compact to which the states are parties as limited by the plain sense and intentions of the instrument constituting the compact, as no further valid that they are authorized by the grants enumerated in that compact, and that in case of a deliberate, palpable, and dangerous exercise of other powers not granted by said compact. The states who are parties thereto have the right and are in duty bound to interpose for arresting the progress of the evil and for maintaining within their respective limits the authorities' rights and liberties appertaining to them. There is no authority in the Constitution for the federal government to legislate the possession or use of any plant. There is also no authority for the federal government to infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms. It is expressly forbidden by the Second Amendment. The second article in the first 8 prohibitions written against the federal government and the federal government only. In 2016, the people of Florida overwhelmingly rejected the federal prohibition on medical marijuana. They did this by ballot initiative since the legislature lacked the fortitude to this by legislation. We the people of Florida, in effect, nullify the federal prohibition as is our right to protect our decision. It is a responsibility of our state legislator to interpose on our behalf to arrest the progress of the evil being any federal action to deny a medical marijuana patient in Florida their right to keep and bear arms. To rectify the very real danger expressed by the Honorable Mr. Byrd, the legislature needs to take the appropriate steps. 1. First, deny all federal agencies to access the list of medical marijuana patients in Florida. This confidentiality must be maintained no matter what financial threats the federals may take to obtain these names. Piss on them. To hell with their blackmailing and bribes. Where they get their money from? The states. Next, the legislator must enact measures which prohibit any Florida law enforcement officer, any state agent, any court or state employee from assisting federal officers with the arrest and prosecution of any Florida medical marijuana patient. This includes any intelligence gathering, warrants, and the use of jail for confinement. Any Florida LEO, state agency, judge, or state employee would violate this law would be subject to penalties from suspension without pay to termination. There is nothing illegal about such non-cooperation. Sure, sheriffs and police chiefs will lobby hard against it, but liberty and not the legislators' love affair with uniformed services and fear of their lobbyists must carry the day. You know what? If these sheriffs and police chiefs don't like it, give them a P9 microphone when you start criticizing them. Plain and simple. Don't be afraid to go to these meetings and call them what they are. Federalized Uncle Toms or Angel Mamas, all right? Make that plain and simple. The Second Amendment prohibits the federals from infringing on their right to keep and bear arms. The Constitution does not authorize the federals to legislate the use or possession of plants or drugs. This is a state power never ceded to the central government. The legislation of firearms in Florida is contained in our state constitution, in our Declaration of Rights, Article 1, Section 8, rightly or wrongly. We have placed all firearm legislations, including manner and place of bearing arms, in the hands of the state legislature. Well, about the regulation and all that, I disagree, because I'll tell you this. It's a natural born right. If I could carry it, concealed weapons permits are a privilege, and I say that in good faith. But I will continue on here. Unless the state legislature is willing to tell 71% of the voters they plan on denying medical marijuana patients to keep their right and bear arms, they should not waste too much time in moving to protect those rights from the federals. We didn't vote your way. We didn't vote away our right to keep and bear arms when we rejected federal prohibition. Representative Byrd is correct. It isn't fair to force people to navigate the complex divide between federal and state law. So our message to Representative Byrd and his House colleagues is this: simplify the complex and don't force Florida medical marijuana patients to navigate this divide. Interpose now with the proper legislation. Protect the liberty of Floridians who are both gun owners and medical marijuana patients now or will become both in the future. The day is fast approaching where sides must be taken, lines must be drawn, liberty supported or supplanted. Where stands our state legislator? That's a question mark. And I have to agree, because when you read the Bill of Rights, I'm going to go under the JPFO's website on the Bill of Rights transcript, which is stand for government keep out, of course. And just to let you folks know, next Friday, this upcoming Friday, it will be Bill of Rights Day, when the state of Virginia fully ratified the U.S. Bill of Rights into our Constitution. All right, so this is one. So what it says right here on amendment, Second Amendment, a well-rigged militia being necessary to secure security of a free state, the right of people The keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That means individuals, the people, have the right to own and use weapons without interference from the government. Plain and simple, right? Well, you got these dinkleberries out there believing, oh, well, we're getting militia. You know what? You need to put a lid on it, okay? And we can hit down here on the 9th Amendment. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed or to deny or disparage others retained by the people. You have more rights that are specifically listed in the Bill of Rights. So even if they use, well, technically, those are your natural born rights. That's not listed here. So even the right to carry and right to keep and bear arms is a natural right. No ends, ifs, or buts. And this is why I am real critical of the concealed carry permits, because in the state of Florida, it's considered a privilege, not a right. So instead of complaining about it, I'm going to exercise my natural born rights and share this information with others. And in a period of time, we may be a natural right to carry state, or constitution to carry state, natural right to carry state. So you have to look at all those areas. And so I'm going to add the Florida Constitution here as well. We're talking about basic rights, all right, where it says you're all natural persons, female and male alike, are equal before the law and have inalienable rights, among the right to enjoy, defend life and liberty, to pursue happiness. So it gives you a whole rundown stuff if you're ineligible, if you're a legal alien, okay? And of course, they got the right to bear arms down here, which I disagree about, except the matter of bearing arms may be regulated by law. So I disagree with that, because that contradicts the whole thing on the right to keep and bear arms for not being infringed. But regulated is a compromise, so, and the 3-day waiting period, all that to me is nothing more than a farce. And of course, you got due process, all right, that as well. And we got due process here as well, even the 5th Amendment U.S. Constitution. So this whole thing is, my friends, we have these rights, and we got to look at one more thing, the right of privacy on Section 23 of this article. Every natural person has the right to be left alone and free from government intrusion into the person's private life, accepted as otherwise there herein. So, your right to privacy should be, the government should not be any intrusion. So right there, they have the power to tell the feds, butt out. The sheriff and the governor can tell the feds, butt out. All right, so just to give you guys that information, and I'm going to add this case here, which is 10th Amendment related. Printz, Printz, Sheriff J. Printz, and Sheriff Mack that challenged the United States government on, which is in reference to the Brady Law, and actually it has it's all the way to the Supreme Court. So and it talks about how the Brady Law encroaches on the 10th Amendment on states' rights. Very good case, and I'm going to add that. I'm going to add, and pertaining to that is Federalist Papers 46, the influence of the state and federal governments compared. Those are written by James Madison, and it gives you a lot of great information here as well. And I love it when it says here, many considerations besides those suggested on the former occasion seem to place beyond a doubt that first, the natural attachment the people will be to the government of the respective states. Okay? And so the whole thing is, when it comes down to it, they should never, the federal government shall never encroach on states' jurisdiction. I know you hear a lot of noise in the background. I do apologize for that. But there's one thing you should always look at, to see things in a bigger picture. That's why I've always been supporting natural rights, not privileges. Constitutional rights is well and good, but remember, a Bill of Rights is based on our natural born rights. So you have to look back at the U.S. Declaration of Independence as well. You can put that in. So I'm going to add those footnotes to this particular article so you can actually read it and learn a lot more. It's more of an educational basis and know what you can stand for. Because one thing for sure, my friends, you have to, the more you know, the more knowledge you gain, the less you fear the state, the government. But try not to be a dumb, stagnant, and happy. But all right, so this one here is very interesting. Came out yesterday. A friend of mine from Florida 10th Amendment Center posted this up. And this is an exclusive. Came out yesterday around 7:18 p.m. from rollcall.com. Taxpayers paid $220,000 to settle case involving Representative Alcee Hastings, former commissioner staff for alleged sexual harassment by Florida Democrat. As it reads here, the Treasury Department paid $220,000 in a previous undisclosed agreement to settle a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment that involved Florida Democrat Alcee Hastings, according to documents obtained by roll call. Winsome Packer, a former staff member of a congressional commission that promotes international human rights, said in documents that the congressman touched her, made unwanted sexual advances, and threatened her job. At the time, Hastings was a chairman of the Commission on Security and Cooperation in Europe, where Packer worked. Hastings has called Packer charges ludicrous, and in documents, he never sexually harassed her. Until this evening, I've seen on the settlement agreement between the Commission on Security Cooperation in Europe, CSCE, said Ms. Packer. The congressman said in a statement Friday night. This matter was handled solely by the Senate Chief Counsel for Employment, and no time I was consulted, nor did I know until after the fact that such a settlement was made. Hastings said that the lawsuit that Packer filed against him and an investigation by the House Ethics Committee were ultimately dismissed. I am outraged that any taxpayer dollars were needlessly paid to Ms. Packer, he said. The 2014 payment to settle the case involving Hastings was not apparently included in a breakdown of payouts to settle discrimination complaints against House lawmakers for the past 5 years, released last month by the Office of Compliance, which approves the payouts. The total included only one payment to resolve the sexual harassment claim. $84,000 paid to settle a complaint against Texas GOP Representative Blake Franenhold. The Senate hasn't released similar numbers. Tortuous process. The settlement involving the accusations against Hastings raised new questions about the secretive and convoluted way Congress handles employee complaints of sexual harassment and other forms of discrimination. Lawmakers, inspired in part by recent allegations against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein and President Donald Trump, have launched an effort to revise the 1995 Congressional Accountability Act that lays out the process of reporting and responding to such complaints. A wave of harassment complaints felled powerful figures in other industries in recent months and resulted in the resignation this week of two senior lawmakers, Representative John Conyers Jr., a Michigan Democrat, and Trent Franks, an Arizona Republican. Minnesota Democratic Senator Al Franken also announced he would be resigning in the coming weeks. So it doesn't matter what party you're in, right? Absolutely. But what really gets me about some of these people, there are a lot of these folks that aren't really freedom friendly anyway. They're a bunch of tyrannical quacks, to be very sincere. So as I continue on here, about lawmakers seeking to determine the extent of the problem in Congress have been unable to obtain basic information from the administrative offices that oversee House and Senate employees, including who among current members of Congress have been named in complaints. Recent reports have indicated that lawmakers can bypass official congressional offices to resolve disputes. Conyers resigned this week after revelations that he paid a staff member who had accused him of harassment $27,000 out of his office account. Packer was considered a congressional employee under the law that established a commission where she worked, also called the Helsinki Commission. The body is made up of 21 members, 18 of whom are members of the House and Senate appointed by the leaders of their respective chambers. The other members represent the Department of State, Defense, Commerce, that are appointed by the President. The documents obtained by roll call indicate that the OOC approved a $220,000 settlement to be paid to Packer by the Treasury Department, which issued a payment to settle disputes involving lawmakers. According to documents obtained by roll call, Packer appears to receive a payment of that amount from the Treasury Department in May 2014, according to documents. A spokeswoman for Maryland Democratic Senator Benjamin L. Cardin, who was the chairman of the Helsinki Commission in 2014, referred a request for comment to the House and Senate employees' employment offices. Officials from the OOC did not immediately return requests for comment Friday, nor did the officials with the Senate Chief Counsel for Employment, which apparently handled the settlement for the Helsinki Commission. House lawmakers have said they are working on legislation that would ensure victims of harassment will not be barred from future employment in Congress and can discuss their cases if they want to. Lawmakers also want to ensure that future settlements are not paid by the taxpayers. One case of sexual harassment is one case too many. A spokeswoman for House Administration Chairman Greg Harper said this is why it's so important for the committee to conduct its extensive review of harassment and discrimination in the congressional workplace. This is very interesting stuff, so it's like, let's go keep it under the rug here, okay? I will proceed here. Idealism dashed. Packer told Roll Call that she felt blackballed after her ordeal and has since struggled to find her unemployment. As an immigrant who came here with all these ideas, like someone just removed the other foundations that all stood in this country for all these years, said Packer, who was born in Jamaica. Packer was a former Republican Hill staffer who had lost her job when Democrats took control of Congress in 2006. She said in her lawsuit that Hastings, whom she knew through a friend, invited her to apply to the Helsinki Commission. She was stationed in Vienna and was required to travel with Hastings to other foreign countries. She said in her lawsuit that Hastings repeatedly asked to stay at her apartment or to visit her hotel room. Packer also said he frequently hugged her and once asked what kind of underwear was she wearing. She filed a complaint with the OOC in 2010 and sued Hastings and the commission in federal court in 2011. Initially, she has been told that laws protecting congressional workers do not apply to commission staffers like her, according to the court records and media reports. Packer sued under the Florida statute that allows individuals to seek damages against federal officials for violation of civil rights. But Hastings was dropped from the lawsuit in 2012 after he argued that the law didn't apply to members of Congress. The suit continued against the commission. House Ethics Committee closed the investigation in December 2014. It interviewed 8 witnesses and concluded that the most serious allegations against Hastings were not supported by evidence, although he did admit to certain conduct that was less than professional. Interesting thing here, and it was so funny. I'm not even crazy about the sleaze bag. Okay, Alcee Hastings. He's one of the most corrupt individuals I know. His voting record blows. He hates freedom. It doesn't matter what you look like. He believes everyone should kiss the floor he walks at in a tyrannical way. So I do remember him being impeached. Okay, when he was a judge. So I'm going to add a little thing here about the impeachment trial of Alcee Hastings in 1989, U.S. District Judge, and the results were this. He was found guilty on 8 of 17 articles of impeachment. The President pro tempore ordered him removal of office. He was not disqualified for future office. So they took him out as a judge, but he ran for Congress a few years later. So that tells you something, my friend. This is very unusual how this guy really is, and he supports the Patriot Act. He's one of those guys who likes imperialism, and he believes and he claims that we're just a bunch of his peasants. So you know what? The guy needs to be going in prison. I treat him like George W. Bush and Cheney and all those guys. So you know that's why, like I said, this you gotta get red or blue. Expect to get screwed. Okay, you gotta get screwed whether it's red or blue. So this red say blue say don't mean anything to me. Okay, when it comes to freedom, that's what I focus on. Tyranny, I despise all of it, including individuals like Congressman Hastings. Okay, so this is why I don't trust these pissants in Washington D.C. Never trust the government. That is our culture and heritage, and may our contemporaries fulfill it. Okay, so next one here came from Bob Livingston's Alerts. It says here, what's really behind the war on drugs? And it says here, there's perhaps no issue that misleads, confuse, and bedevils concerned citizens of all political stripes than the so-called war on drugs. The Republican government oligarchy is well aware of this fact, and so it is used a trumped-up false war on drugs to deceive the masses, to deceive and wear out taxpayers, to paramilitarize and a large law enforcement and government, and to promote the two-party left-right considered a liberal false paradigm. The war on drugs is not a war by public officials against criminals at all, but a war for drugs is the way public officials for profit from criminality expand their kingdoms and overrule the rule of law and the Constitution. And in my upending research into this conspiracy, I have learned that this kind of tyrannical control is possible only by mass deception, a la reefer madness. There is a total control over governmental and political processes to the detriment of the people in every category of the nation's and local interests. It is raw power exercised by today's single party dressed as two. False universal religion is the chief mean of this mass deception, followed by the protection of particular elements to induce confusion, including drugs and the war on drugs, a control of mass media to spread government propaganda, and politics as usual non-solution. If you support drugs, you are supporting terrorism. That's one of the great propaganda tools out there, you know? Government strategy is to invade our privacy and freedom under the pretext of protecting us from terrorism, drug traffickers, and all kind of booger bears. Politicians, as usual, all protect and enlarge the government, drug trade, while pretending to do precisely the opposite. Such opposite behavior is the proof of a conspiracy against Americans. Republican politicians, for example, profess pro-Christian, anti-big government ideas, but join the Democrats in faith-destroying socialist legislation to expand the welfare state. The war on drugs helps justify. Democrats, for example, claim to protect the working man, while joining Republicans and multinational mega corporations to pass free trade legislation, thus destroying the middle class, farming families, and American industrial and agricultural sectors. The war on drugs is used as justification for the passage of a host of liberty-stealing laws. A few among many are these. Man, good brother. The federal government removed from circulation all bills above $100 and is moving stealthy toward elimination cash. Well, a moment. Okay, yep, sorry about that. So I was going to say, $100 and is moving stealthy toward eliminating cash altogether. In the truth, this is about not about fighting drug trafficking. It's about driving Americans into an economy at which all financial transactions are electronic transactions for tracking and taxing purposes. Can we say the brave new world? Exactly. Banks are required by law to file suspicious activity reports on customers who engage in any suspicious transactions relevant to a possible violation of law or regulation. What does this mean? The law compels banks to report any transactions that are no apparent lawful purpose or no sort in which particular customer would normally be expected to engage. This, of course, is an entirely selective judgment, and banks are apt to err on the side of caution, which means that they can be expected to report anything and everything that seems the slightest bit out of the ordinary. Banks are required by law to provide the federal government with currency transaction reports, CTR forms, on customers who engage in transactions involving $10,000 or more. And all those suspect individuals who have several such reports filed on them may be audited by the IRS or investigated for dealing drugs. So if you are a successful person, you do everything legit, they may think you're a drug dealer. But if the government does it, they're exceptional. Exceptional. They can do it, but we can't. Exceptional. Exactly. You know how that game goes. Government knows best. Massachusetts lawmakers are considering a bill that will ban on adding hidden compartments to vehicles in order to secure private property like guns or money or other valuables. And the law would empower LEOs to seize any vehicle so outfitted. The law also includes a 2-year mandatory prison sentence and 5 years for subsequent offenses. Oh my goodness, these compartments are offensive. Now my feelings are hurt. I'm a victim because I'm so sensitive. That's Massachusetts government crying. bunch of cowards at the yard. I bet you one thing, if Paul Revere was around, he'd be punching them all in the mouth and go, "You a bunch of bloody wussies," you know what I'm saying? That's with that heavy accent of his. In Oklahoma, is against the law to fortify a home for the purpose of preventing or delaying entry or access by a law enforcement officer. According to the statute, it is legal to construct, install, position, use any hold or any material or device designed to strengthen, defend, restrict, or obstruct any door, window, or other opening into dwelling, structure, building, or other place and extent beyond the security provided by commercial alarm system, lock or deadbolt, or combination of alarm, lock, or deadbolt. So those things at the Casper Doctrine law in Oklahoma. I'm a law enforcer. If you got this heavy door, if I break my leg, you going under arrest. Yep. They call it the knockdown warrants. You know, they call it knock and kick in. Yep, that's very unique. Excuse me here. The war on drugs has resulted in rising militancy and militarized Gestapo-like mindset among LEOs legally entitled to oppress, from local small-town street cop to the FBI to the Drug Enforcement Agency. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is a big fan of asset forfeiture, a process by which LEOs confiscate people's money and property for their own personal use. Yeah, you have to understand, I'm trying to make sure my grandkids get all the stuff they get confiscated, I give it to them. Involved in innocent civilians who only crime is having in their possession more money that the LEOs think is warranted at the time, lose their cash and their cars and even their houses without ever being convicted or even charged with the crime, all under the auspices of the war on drugs. It should all be wearing "I Love Mao Tse-Tung" or Fidel Castro buttons, right? Exactly. That's including Jeff Sessions, the keyboard twit. The drug war corrupts the justice system. In 2013, workers at the Massachusetts Crime Lab were caught conspiring with prosecutors in that state by tampering with samples and intentionally forging signatures. As many as 40,000 cases may have their evidence tainted. Chemist Annie Doken pleaded guilty, to all 27 counts for altering drug evidence and obstructing justice that prosecutors filed against her. Was a crime lab chemist for 9 years. Her tampered evidence has put thousands of innocent people behind bars, and thousands more have their sentences lengthened based on their fake evidence. Following Dukin's guilty plea, a second Massachusetts crime lab chemist was been fired after investigators determined she had fabricated her educational credentials. Kate Corbett worked alongside with Dukin and testified as a chemistry expert in dozens of court cases that led to convictions, even though her degree is in sociology. Defense attorneys argue that many as 180,000 Massachusetts drug cases may be tainted by two women's actions. The federal government has been known to pick winners and losers in Mexico's drug war by allowing some cartels free rein to commit murder within the United States and transport multi-ton quantities of drugs across the U.S. border with impunity. These revelations come from emails hacked from security firm Stratfor and released by WikiLeaks and from federal court filings. In the emails, a Mexican diplomat dubbed MX1 wrote that both Mexican and American authorities have been negotiating deals with the larger cartel, tolerating their cross-border trafficking and encouraging them to take out smaller cartels in belief that the fewer cartels will be able to negotiate their differences peaceably. They want cartels to negotiate with each other. The idea, if they can do this, the violence will drop and the government will allow controlled drug trades, the email stated. In other words, it's a form of a neo-mercantilism market. Another leaked email from a federal law enforcement supervisor stated regarding ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, screwing up informants. ICE were handling big hitmen from Juarez and letting them kill in the U.S. Federal court filings, Jesus Vicente Zambada Nablia, said to be a logistic coordinator for Sinaloa, a major Mexican cartel, claimed that the U.S. government has offered his organization virtual immunity to import tons of drugs across the border. He also claimed that in exchange for information on rival cartels, the Sinaloa cartel was armed by federal agents and aided in avoiding Mexican authorities. The Fast and Furious gun-running scandal under President Barack Obama and Attorney General Holder also armed drug cartels, and those weapons have been used in numerous crimes, including murder of American border agents and the robbery and murder of American citizens in the U.S. The U.S. military, since the beginning of the war in Afghanistan, has stood watch over Afghani poppy fields and turned a blind eye when it was directly facilitating them. For the operations of Afghan drug traffickers, Afghanistan provides 9% of the world's supply of opium poppy, making the U.S. government a co-conspirator in the rise of U.S. opium epidemic, along with the prescribing physicians and the legal U.S. drug cartel known as Big Pharma. CIA has a long history of tracking the trafficking in drugs to fund its operation. There's links on here too, so folks, please check it out yourselves. The result of the drug war is that the U.S. has 6 to 12 times as many incarcerated people per capita as does Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, or the United Kingdom. The U.S. has 5% of the world's population, 25% of its incarcerated people, and half of the world's academically qualified lawyers. Those lawyers consume about 10% of America's gross domestic product. There are about 2.3 million people populating America's 1,719 state prisons, 102 federal prisons, 942 juvenile correctional facilities, 3,283 local jails, and 79 Indian County jails, as well as the military prisons, immigration detention facilities, civil commitment centers, and prisons in the United States territory. In the U.S., people go to jail about 11 million times each year. Another 11 million are on parole or probation. There is no question that the U.S. is a prison nation. An overwhelming majority of people in prisons are there for nonviolent crimes, about 20% of them for drug crimes. 1 in 3 Americans will be arrested by the age of 23. The folks' war on drugs has ensnared millions of Americans for the non-crime possessing parts of a plan. The war on drugs is a sham and a scam, and federal agencies are corrupted by it, as are the states and municipalities and their LEOs. Meanwhile, U.S. prisons and cemeteries are overflowing with the victims. The constant success of government criminality in this regard is so staggering that can only conclude that the DOJ and its controllers in Congress and the White House are satanic. The United States, the Constitution is dead. Long live the United States, cried the deceived masses and their rulers. Dropping all pretense, the truth is that government is at war with you. The criminal element is the excuse. Besides, the government and the criminal element are one. Otherwise, why would they protect criminals? Absolutely. This is why, my friends, you can fight this stuff, the war on drugs and all these things. Victimless crime, jury nullification, have your states nullifying these federal drug laws, and even nullify stuff in a local and state level. If there's no victim, there's no crime. And this is why these parasites, these treasonous douchebags, all right, in government, whether it's federal, state, or local, think you're weak and pathetic. I'll tell you this, you're not. You gotta stick it to them, because here's the thing, without us, they are nothing. They're just piss ants that want you to believe you're powerless, but you give them a penile microphone, they talk to you like that. And don't worry, it's not sexual harassment. So no victim, no crime. Repeal all victimless crime laws, including the drug war, to destroy the drug war. Get them where it hurts. If you study what happened in the 18th Amendment, which had banned alcoholic beverages, you couldn't sell it, liquor and all that. What happened? Maryland was the first state to nullify it, and everyone else followed through, and the federal government had to repeal it because they didn't have any control. Without us, they are nothing. Nothing. The bottom line is, my friends, they need us more, we need them. Fight this tyrannical propaganda. It's just like the war on terror, the war on drugs is a conflagration with its people. All right? Plain and simple. And banish, abolish this to the core. All right. Finally, do one more thing here. It came from the collegefix.com. Came out yesterday, to be exact. It says here, whistling considered sexual harassment under university policy. So if I look at a girl and whistle, they can be, that's offensive. How dare you got sexual harassment. This is called the safe zone, right? Safe space. So this is what they said here at Tennessee State. Which this is a suggestive matter may lead to expulsion. Tennessee State University warns against listing a suggestive matter on the grounds that they may constitute sexual harassment, a policy that has helped earn in a red light rating from one of the nation's premier college watchdog groups. A public university in Nashville currently holds a red light rating from the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, which is FIRE for anchoring for that. For several of its policies that effectively allow officials to punish various forms of free speech as harassment. Among them, the public university's discrimination and harassment policy warns employees and students that whistling the suggested matter could get them sanctioned, including being expelled or fired. It's officially deemed the tune sexual harassment. Other examples of possible sexual harassment listed under the policy include suggestive or insulting sounds, suggestive or obscene gestures, unnecessary touching or brushing against the body, jokes about sex inside and outside the classroom, and more. In some, there are at least 20 different ways from students and employees can be found guilty of sexual harassment. According to the policy, campus officials state that they consider the total circumstances before deeming whether an act is sexual harassment. The college reached out multiple times to the school's media relations department for comment and clarification on the policies. No representatives from the school responded. Multiple attempts were also made to speak to the university's Title IX coordinator to ask whether suggestive whistling was a significant problem on campus. These requests were also ignored. FIRE's Vice President of Policy Research, Samantha Harris, told College Fix in a telephone interview that one problem with this policy is vagueness. Very broad categories of speech are banned as harassment simply because someone might find them suggestively offensive, and that's something that courts have repeatedly held violates the First Amendment, Harris said. So they're saying, like, if you're sensitive, they could be considered that you can get that for sexual harassment, right? In addition to the university's ban on suggestive whistling, Harris criticized the policy's prohibition on jokes, humor, and inappropriate communication. There could really be applied against core political speech and humor on social and political issues, and really just used to suppress unpopular speech, she said. Harris also pointed out the university's policies regarding dissent and protest. The relevant policy reads in part, group dissenting taken in the form of demonstrations, marching, or sit-in activities will not be permitted inside university buildings or during university-wide events such as athletic contests, convocations, special lectures, and assemblies. By banning any kind of demonstration during the university-wide events, you are really restricting students' right to protest and get their message across, Harris said. This is like, like a free, like, this is not, you can't do this, you can't do that. Look at a bunch of nannies. These people are so pathetic, The same assembly policy also requires that dissent be registered with the Vice President of Student Affairs, who will ensure that the event is held in an acceptable time and appropriate site. Harris said that constitutes a prior restraint on speech. Absolutely. Good grief. This is Tennessee State, a funded, state-funded facility. Okay? Fire rate schools speech policies on a green, yellow, red light scale. Red indicates the school has at least one policy that clearly substantially restricts speech. Both the discrimination, harassment guidelines, and protest and demonstration policies at Tennessee State have been given the red light designations by the organizations. Campus free speech have been in the news frequently over the past few years, and sexual harassment has often been at the center. Northwestern professor Louis Kenneth was recently forced to fend off a Title IX investigation in response to an essay she wrote about sexual paranoia on campus. And J. Martin Rochester, a professor at University of Missouri St. Louis, was subject to a Title IX investigation for having vehement disagreements with female co-workers. So if someone gets offended, they go, I can't do that, sexual harassment. If you look at someone attractive, hey, say that's sexual harassment. So this is all a little like the sensitive game. Okay, there's a big difference between harassment and just like looking at something that's attractive. You appreciate it. Even women do it all the time. I see them all the time. Like I see them a lot of times. Like Pablo's, like female Pablo's dogs. All right, I'm not going after women as a whole. But I'm looking at this even across the board. But one thing you gotta look at too, my friend, the whole thing's a damn joke. And Tennessee State is a state-funded facility, and even in their own constitution, it talks about that in the Tennessee Constitution for sure. And this is why I get a big kick out of these knuckleheads. All right, these we-can pathetic crybabies don't even know how to tie their own shoelaces, and they're gonna try to tell me I can't whistle or go, hey, that's a hello, ma'am, how you doing? It's like I'm not a robot, I'm a human being, for goodness sakes. If I see something attractive, yeah, I'm going to look, I'm going to say hello and all that. Doesn't mean I'm going to score with them. And the one thing that really gets my goat, they got people out there that don't even understand humanity. Like, they want to treat everyone like robots or zombies, and this is clearly unacceptable. Well, I'm going to go right here in Declaration of Rights and Tennessee Constitution. And even though this is a state thing, and we got on more Section 3 about defeatable right to worship and all that. So, and all the powers inherited to the people. So, no religious test. Where are you? This is one on free speech here for sure. I should have did this before I've now, no man. Okay, no, that's not it. That'd be 8. Where are you? Looks like you don't have it here, right? Oh, wow. You don't have free speech in this damn thing. Yeah, right here. That citizens have a right and the people matter to assemble together for their common goods and the structure represents and apply to invest the power, address grievances. You can do that. That's interesting. So you don't really have something in here on free speech. Very interesting. But, yeah, so you have natural born rights guaranteed in here. So you can really look at that for sure. But, you got a lot of stuff in here. Oh, well, you know what? That's just how it goes. But I could just say this. I could really just look at this whole area. No. No man should be taken or prison or seized. Okay. Interesting. I don't really have it in here. Well, sorry about that, my friends. And I'll just delete that for the time being. For being time-consuming in this area. But the truth of the matter is, you got your natural born rights as well. So that's self-explanatory. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, but feel free to download and share throughout the social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you're saying something that's interesting and I want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life. I recommend not to go to contact me there. There's been some issues. All right. However, you can hit me on minds.com, futurenet.club, patreon.com/looklook3 if you want to be a patron, donor, supporter, be awesome. You can hit me on gab.ai. That's a good site for a free speech version of Twitter. In addition, you can email me at lookluck3@gmail.com or to encrypted ones, lookyluck03@protonmail.com. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. But always remember that the demoniac resistance helps with the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.